Hello students, welcome you all for the course of MBA Semester 3 Human Relations and Legal Framework. Today is our lecture number 30 and the topic of our discussion is the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So, the primary objective of our today's session is help to understand the concept of Minimum Wages Act 1948. And the contents of our today's session are Introduction to Minimum Wages Act 1948, Scope and Object of this Act, Minimum Wages Act MW Act 1948. This is acronymed as MW Act in this way. Important definitions under this MW Act 1948, fixation of minimum rates of wages under this act, and minimum rate of wages under the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So we are going to start with the introductory part. In the last session we discussed about the Wages Act, the Payment of Wages Act 1936. Now let us have discussion with respect to this Minimum Wages Act 1948. So this Minimum Wages Act 1948, which was passed in 1948 and came into force from 15th March 1948. This act has been primarily designed, particularly to protect the interest of workers, those are belonging to unorganized sectors. So there are some industries and other establishment. Those are employing the certain type of workers, including agricultural workers, those are working in the farming. Those are being also protected under this act. So this act primarily that will provide the kind of safeguard to the such a kind of workers, those who are being belonging to the scheduled employment. So this act will provide the fixation and revision of minimum wages of workers, those are belonging to or workers those are engaged in the scheduled employment. Now scheduled employment, that we will see in the various forms of definitions that we will cover under this act. So primarily these are the temporary workers, those are working in the unorganized sector. There are two parts of the schedule, part 1 and part 2. And this will include some industrial workers, or some other workers, those are belonging to unorganized sector, including some agricultural workers also. So why these particular forms of law or law of minimum wages act 1948 has been designed, particularly in case of unorganized sector. So many of the workers, that those are not having not enough bargaining power to ask about the wages from the employer. So this act will protect such a kind of workers, and to get their minimum wages that should be made offer from the employer. Now when we are talking about this act, here primarily the central and the state government has been responsible to include the type of workers under the scheduled employment, and they were having the responsibility to fix and revise that minimum wages from time to time. It is the complete responsibility of that central government and state government. So that scheduled employment will include the different types of workers. So and this schedule has been updated from time to time, according to the provisions which has been made under this act. And their minimum wages has been fixed and revised from time to time. So what is the primary objective behind this particular form of act, payment of minimum wages act 1948? So this act was evolved with a reference to the remuneration to the workers in those industry, wherever the level of wages of workers are substantially low and labor was vulnerable to exploitation. and being not being organized and having a very less effective bargaining power. Okay, so wherever the workers are being largely exploited by the group of employers, and they are giving them a very low salary or wages, and they could not fight back with the employer and could not appeal directly to some higher authorities. So it is quite mandatory from the government of India by means of using the state and central government, okay, and enacting this minimum wages act 1948. The provision has been made particularly for all such workers, those who are working in the unorganized sector, so they should get a minimum wages, okay, according to act, so that they can make their livelihood as easier as possible. So the minimum rate of wages that will include, okay, some kind of special allowances, say for example variable dearness allowances, okay, will be depending on that, the wages would be calculated, and that wages has been linked to consumer price index number, and which are revised twice a year. So every 2 year consumer price index numbers are calculated. Depending on that, okay, some special allowances should be added into the existing wages, and time to time these wages are being revised from the central as well as the state government. So primarily the state government will define about what would be the form of wages, okay, form of minimum wages need to be provided to these unorganized sectors, labors, okay, those are working in different industries and other parts of the country. And that next is scope and object of the minimum wages act 1948. Okay, now when we are talking about this minimum wages act 1948, okay, this will primarily perform the activity of this act primarily perform the activity by means of the providing and fixing the minimum wage rates, okay, of wages in the scheduled employment. So whatever form of scheduled employments, okay, the different types of laborers or workers, those are in the different employment, those are registered under the schedule, okay, wherever the central and state government has an authority to fix this minimum rate of wages, okay, within that particular state, or within the country, okay, or within that particular locality, okay, that minimum wages would vary from the region to region or from that particular locality, and depending on some other several factors, okay. State and central government have made several addition in the type of employment to the schedule, and it differ from state to state. So we have been already told you that the central government will decide that what type of schedule employment will be included into that particular schedule. So generally we will find out that these employment are mostly belonging to the unorganized sectors, okay, they are not belonging to the organized sector. So say for example workers, those are working on daily wages in any kind of factory that they this law has been applicable to them, okay. This law has been also applicable to some agriculture workers those are working in the farms, okay, they need to get some minimum wages, so this act would be applicable to them. According to this act, here there is a appropriate government. That appropriate government may be either state government or central government, wherever according to the jurisdictions has been made, okay, particularly to for revising these minimum wages from time to time. So every 5 years these minimum wages are being reviewed or revised, okay, by the appropriate government, okay, either central government or state government. Primarily the central government will make the lots of provisions, and that state government has to follow, but even the state government has been directed by the central government to make some little bit modification in according to the need and requirements within the states or in that particular locality, and that minimum wages should vary from localities to localities, and this act has been applicable to the whole of India, okay. So in this way this act has been formulated particularly to safeguard the interest of safeguard the interest of workers to get the minimum rates of wages under the scheduled employment. Now these are called as the important definitions under the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So according to section 2G, okay, all employments, okay, those are being called as scheduled employments, okay, which will include in the schedule, okay. So in that schedule there are two parts, okay. So part 1 and part 2, okay. So that will cover some different types of employments, okay, and that's why it is called as scheduled employment. So employments which will be specified in the schedule or in any process or branch of work forming the part of such employment, okay, that will be covered under the scheduled employment. So means any workers those are belonging to unorganized sector, okay, they are working in some different industries, or say for example agricultural farming, okay, they will be covered, okay, under this part 1 and part 2 of the schedule. So initially whenever this act was formulated, 12 entries of employment will be covered in the part 1, and other employment those are belonging to agriculture, okay, they will be covered in part 2. So all such workers those who are coming under the scheduled employment, they will be get protected by means of providing the minimum wages according to this Minimum Wages Act 1948. Now when we are talking about this scheduled employment, so what type of workers would be covered, okay, as I have been told to you that minimum wages cover all such workers in sectors those are belonging to agriculture, industrial and small scale sector, okay. Those are either generally the farm laborers, landless laborers, okay, factory workers, people working in some cottage or small scale industries, and construction workers those are working privately under the contractor or any builder. So their needs has been get protected by means of getting the minimum rates of wages from the employer. So they are being protected over here according to the scheduled employment. Now when we are talking about how many types of employment has been there in case of that scheduled employment, so that list of scheduled employment has been varies from year to year, and the central and the state government, okay, they will include that scheduled employment according to their requirements within the particular states or area. So we will find out there are 45 scheduled employments in central sphere, wherever the central government will take care of it, okay, by means of giving the minimum wages to the workers, okay. Even in case of state sphere, there were 1232 scheduled employment will be there, wherever minimum wages has been fixed over there, okay. This will protect the wages against the inflation and were linked to the rise in the consumer price index. So which particular type of employment will be covered under the scheduled employment, okay, that will be decided on the basis of the reports, okay, which are being generated on the basis of consumer price index number, which was published every 2 years from the central government. So depending on that, okay, that particular employment will be covered under this scheduled employment. And all such employees or workers those are working under these agriculture, industrial and small scale sector, they will be protected over here by means of fixing and giving them the minimum wage, okay, from the employer. Then wages, okay, it is the definition that is defined in section 2H of this act, okay, Minimum Wages Act 1948. So wages means all such remuneration, okay, including some particular form of special allowances, but that does not include, okay, the house accommodation, okay, supply of light, water, medical or any other amenity or services, okay, general social order, appropriate government contribution from the employer pension fund or provident fund, any kind of traveling allowances, some paid by the person employed in defray of special expenses, and gratuity. these items will not be covered under the remuneration, okay, under the wages of workers, okay, those are registered under the minimum wages act 1948. Okay, so wages generally means all remunerations, okay, that they will be getting, okay, including some special allowances, okay, particularly that has been related with the employment. Okay, so wages means all remuneration capable of being expressed in terms of money. Okay, generally most of the wages should be given in cash, okay, not in kind. So this act will provide an opportunity to all the workers, particularly those are belonging to unorganized sector. They should have to get the minimum wages from the employer in cash. Okay, if the terms of contract of employment express of implied or will fulfilled be payable to the person employed in respect of his employment or work done in such employment include house rent allowances. Okay, so this will include the house rent allowances that will be considered as a special allowances, but this will not include the following. Okay, this will not directly include house accommodation, okay, supply of light, water, medical, okay, any other amenities, okay, pension fund or provident fund will not be constitute the part of the wages, including traveling allowances or any other special allowances and gratuity will not be covered under the wages. Now fixation of minimum rates of wages. Okay, so according to section 3 1 and subsection A, okay, the appropriate government has been notified according to their official gazette, okay, and they can make the modification to fix the minimum rates of wages under the minimum wages act 1948, okay, under the part 1 and part 2 of this schedule, okay, and in an employment added to either part of the notification under section 27. So okay, if some particular employment wherever we want to include, okay, in both, okay, part 1 and part 2, so there is a provision of section 27, okay, some employment that will be covered in part 1 and part 2, okay, that employment will be covered in both the schedule, part 1 and part 2. Now, in case of employment specified in part 2 of the schedule, the minimum rate of wages may not be fixed for the entire state. So, there are some particular types of employment, okay, wherever the workers are belonging to unorganized sector. In that unorganized sector, the wages are not fixed and for the entire state, okay, and this is because of what, due to the regional economy, okay, the wage rate need to be fixed, and that may be vary from state to state or from localities or different zones, okay, that wages may vary. Okay, in case of employment specified in part 1, okay, wherever the minimum wages must be fixed for the entire state. Okay, so all such employments, those are belonging to part 1 of the schedule, wherever it is quite necessary to fix the minimum rate of wages in advance, and all state and central government will regulate these minimum wages in their within their states or territories. Okay, so but part 2 of the schedule does not says about the fixation of minimum wages for the entire state. Okay, so particularly in case of part 2 of the schedule, okay, the rate to be fixed need not be uniform. Okay, it doesn't mean that in all these states or territories, okay, the rate of minimum wages should be uniform. Different rates can be fixed for different zones and localities. So depending on the situation, depending on the regional economy and considering the other socio parameters, okay, the minimum wages has been decided by the state government. So state government has been directed from the appropriate government to make some modification, and finally they need to fix and revise these wages from time to time. The manner of fixation of the minimum wages. Okay, now what criteria has been used to fix the minimum wages, okay, particularly under the payment of wages act 1948. So according to section 3(2), okay, the minimum wages has been defined on the basis of time of work. Okay, so the on the basis of time of work, minimum time rate. Okay, so time rate system, okay, the wages has been defined. So how much would be the shift hour, okay, or time of working, okay, of that particular employment, that will be considered. In case of piece work, okay, how many number of pieces the worker can produce. So depending on that minimum piece rate, okay, wage system has been applied. And another form of wage system is that is called as guaranteed time rate system. Okay, so under this system, okay, for those who are employed in piece work, for the purpose of securing such employees at minimum rate of wages at the time of work basis. This is intended to meet the situation where the operation of minimum piece rate fixed for the appropriate government may result it into worker earning less than minimum wages. Okay, particularly this guaranteed time rate system, okay, has been used in which case. Okay, now industries, those who are paying the minimum piece rate system, but it is below the minimum wage rate. Okay, in that case, okay, that guaranteed time rate system would be applicable. So it is quite necessary the government ensure here that the worker will at least that they will get the minimum wages, so that they can make their livelihood, okay, by means of using the guaranteed time rate system. Now overtime rate system, particularly for fixing of wages, that could be applicable, okay, in some different sense, wherever minimum rate, wherever the time rate and piece rate to apply the substitution for minimum rate, which would otherwise be applicable in respect of overtime work done by the employee. Okay, so if any of the employees, those who are being employing in the scheduled employment and working according to time work system and piece work system, but they are working overtime, okay, so some extra work that they will produce. So it is quite necessary to cover all such employees by means of getting minimum wages for the overtime work that they were done. So depending on that, overtime wage rate has been calculated and fixed over here. So some further provisions has been there. Section 3 subsection 3, that will provide the minimum different minimum rates for wages that will be fixed for, okay, different schedule of employment. So according to the different schedule of employment, okay, the employment wage rates, okay, the minimum wage rates would vary. Okay, different classes of work in the schedule employment. Okay, now what form of work that they are performing, depending on that their minimum wage rates are also fixed. Okay, the minimum wage rate is also fixed for adolescent children and apprentice workers. Okay, according to this act, and according to the different localities, what will be the minimum wage rates that need to be provided in that locality, that has been fixed by the state government. So in this manner, the government that they will decide and fix the minimum wages for the workers. Now what is the manner of fixation? Okay, generally depending on these 4 5 techniques, the minimum rate of wages has been fixed. Okay, so we will find out that in our last act that we will discuss about the wage period. So according to the wage period, okay, how to decide about the minimum rate of wages. Okay, may be fixed by any one or more of the following wage periods. So one can pay that particular employee or worker according to hour. Okay, so per hour work that individual employee that has been working in that particular factory. So according to hourly basis, wage rate has been decided. Okay, per day minimum wages has been decided, or per month wages has been decided. So in this way, on the basis of hour or per day or per month, okay, the minimum wages need to be paid to that particular uh, type of workers, those who are working according to that scheduled employment, or in some other cases by such other large wage periods may be prescribed if the wage period is not suppose say 7 days or 10 days. Okay, in that case, where such rate has been fixed by the day or by the month, the manner of calculating the wage for the month or for the day, as the case may be indicated. Now the provision has been made under this act. Okay, particularly those who are not providing the minimum wages according to, okay, hourly rate or per day rate or monthly wage rates. Okay, so they need to use, okay, some large wage periods, and they need to provide and mention what is the criteria that they are applying for paying the minimum wages to the workers, and on what will be the period of payment of wages. However, the wage period may be fixed accordance with the Payment of Wages Act 1936. Then minimum rate of wages. So government has been primarily decided to make the payment of wages using the section 3 and under section 4 as well as in section 3. So the basic rate of wages that will include some special allowances. Okay, that will also include some basic rate of wages. Okay, that will cover cover on the basis of cost of living. Okay, and including some other forms of rates, that is called as living allowances. So how much will be the total wages that they need to be paid to the group of workers or in that particular group of scheduled employments. Okay, so government has been decided that the minimum wages to the workers may vary from 40 rupees 40 to rupees 60. So the average average minimum wages should be given as rupees 50 rupees per day for 25 days per month. So in this way the minimum rate of wages has been calculated. Okay, and they will be provided from the employer. Okay, according to whatever the wage period will be there. So that's all for about today's session. Thank you very much.